All right, and we're back for the second episode. So, in the last episode, I was looking at Actors Manager, and last change we made was in here. A small follow-up to that would be that there's really no good reason why both the list of actors and the reference to the player is in the same class, right? It would be better um, to split things up, like to put only the player in its own scriptable object and then only the actors in theirs. And um, I think there's hardly any, if any at all, reference to both actors and player. Follow player and player character controller. Those are the two that wants to access player. And then register and deregister. That's the actors, right? And then this property, that's the detection module. So there's absolutely no overlap. The player should just totally go into a different scriptable object. So let's do that. Oh, by the way, if you're watching this recording, you would probably want to watch this on double speed because live coding is like slow and I speak relatively slow. So just watch it on double speed and you'll be happier. And it looks more impressive the way I type. Right, so we put it in here and I think there should be, oh, here. Should be a function here to move it into its own class. Not sure why it doesn't do that. Right, this. Or does it only do that for the second one? Interesting. I didn't know that. Let me try that again. Ah, today I learned something about my own editor. Move to type. Gone. Right. So in the Actors Manager now we really only have a list of actors that we can register and deregister, and that's good. And then we have the this guy would have a player manager. Again, it's not really a manager at this point. It's not managing anything, but for um, can't come up with a better name right away. So let's stick with that for now. And then here's also the player manager now. Where did we declare that? So many properties. Here, too much stuff going on. Okay, that should be about right. Yeah. So now we have the actors manager and the player manager, and we have to fix the references in follow player and player character controller. Follow player was on this guy, I think. Yeah. Player manager. Oh, we need to create a player manager as well. Create a player manager. Done. Okay, reference. Good. And then what was the other one? Player character, right? Player. Player character controller, player weapon manager, player character. Here. Okay, so now we have separation of concerns, which is one of the object-oriented principles, and we have each class doing only one thing and not multiple things, which is good. And these are scriptable objects that live in the project, so you can always reference them. You can have multiples of them. You can have a test actors manager only for testing and stuff, right? Um, this is already a lot cleaner. So last time I was saying I'm gonna look at the audio manager next. So let's go there. Audio manager. What do we have? Some mono behavior. There's a bunch of audio mixers. Is that something that's built into Unity? Okay. So this Unity stuff. Wait, is it? Yes. Audio module. We can set and get floats, which then does that for all the audio mixes. What does this even mean? Oh, that's really weird. So it sets them for all the audio mixes and gets them out of the first non-null audio mixer. Very weird idea. And then breaks. And if they have different values, then it just, I don't know, it just gets it out of the first one. Also, why would you go and make it so difficult for you? Why do you like use a for loop and then you index into it 2 times? Like for each. For each doesn't allocate it garbage anymore. So you can just like audio mixers, you just for each it and then mixer set float name value, right? And if you compare like these essentially 2 lines of code to these, oh, okay, there's a null check in here. Why? If you have a public property, by the way, don't do public properties, do serialized field, private, right? Because then at least in code nobody can mess with this. So if you have a field that is supposed to be assigned in the inspector, why do you have a null check in there? Where like there's nothing in here dynamically adding or removing audio mixes, and there's nothing external uh, accessing those audio mixes. So let's actually refactor that so that I don't have to type them so much. So why would you have a null check? This is a null check at runtime. You can detect the situation that someone assigns something non-null in this array at build time. You can write a unit test that runs over your entire project and looks at all those game objects, all the audio, finds all the audio managers, finds all this field using reflection, and then if it's null, it fails and the build doesn't build and then now like there's no point in the null check. So get rid of this null check and also then just get rid of the indexing because it's more error prone. What if it was like this or like this or like this like do or or like this? Like are you really gonna spend time looking at this line of code and be like, yeah, I want to be really, really sure that it works. And the worst you can really do in terms of maintenance is accessing the very same thing multiple times without caching, like without storing it in a local variable, because like it's so easy to make any mistakes between here, and they are difficult to spot. So just that. It's shorter, right? And then here, okay, so you want the value, and you find a non-null audio mixer, you get the value out, and then you break. But but you might as well return here because there's nothing coming here, right? Like you the return signal is okay, you're done. So again, let's just make it a little bit simpler here. Okay. So the first I'm not actually sure if I prefer to do a for each with a return after the first one or if I would like to grab the first mixer out and then do like a null check on it because or like a count on this. Let's see how that looks like. So it could, for example, it could look like this: less than one element, um, then value is null, and we're done, right? And if we have one element, well then we'll just get float of that. So that's relatively clean. There are no surprises in here, and we don't need any of this code, of course. There's a little bit of a surprise in here because for each usually implies that you're actually gonna do something for each and not just bail out on the first one. So that's why I don't like it. And then of course there would be something like, okay, mixer is the you're using link queue. Just get me the first one, right? And then I'll do a null check on that. If I don't have a mixer, then do this. Otherwise, do mixer, get value, get float, like that. Or alternatively, the other way around with the if, right? Like if I have a mixer, then get it out of the mixer. Otherwise, use null. Or if you want to go even more like, I don't know how to say that, but first of all, what stupid signature is this? Why is it like that? You want to get something out. Why do you use an out parameter and not like just like return the damn thing, right? Like we're not adhering to some sort of external interface here. So, float. Let's return it. That makes things easier because now we don't have to assign it and then use an empty return. Now we just like return null, 0 directly, right? And then, oh, it's probably to match like the signature of this, which has a bool, which we didn't check. Like this actually probably checks if we have a parameter that is called name, and the original code did not check that at all. Like, is that not something we would like to know? Like whether that, let's look up what that does. Audio mixer get float. Returns false if the exposed parameter specified does not exist. Seems like a really good idea only to get the float out of the audio mixer that actually has that float exposed. Right? And that's why the Unity API has an out parameter and a bool return value. But like, but that's not what we're using, what we're doing here. We just think that our audio manager has an audio mixer that has a massive volume. I mean, the first one even has a massive volume, and that's the one we want to get. And then we want to set the master volume on all of these audio mixers. I suppose that's why it's called master volume. But that's silly, isn't it? Audio mixer controller. So I haven't used Unity Audio too much, but I think I think there are well, basically audio players, and then you can assign them to like groups, and then you can set the volume for the entire group at once without having to resort to stuff like this where you stuff them all into one manager, and then you set the parameter on all of them the same. Like that sounds weird. That should be built in. I thought that's what this group is doing. Object representing a group in the mixer. This singleton mixer asset in the project. All right. So I haven't done my research, and I don't know enough about Unity Audio to be able to say whether this is stupid or only looks stupid. For now, we're gonna assume that Unity doesn't have a way to actually um, group these mixers and use a uh, adjust the volume on the entire group. And for now, we're just gonna assume that um, this is indeed how we have to code it up ourselves, right? So what I was going to do was I could have like a get float helper method that takes an audio mixer, right, and a name for the parameter that I want to get the float from mixer, right, and then it does something like return. It checks if the mixer is non-null, and then it does like mixer get float. Oh, cannot do that because it's if mixer. If I have a mixer, then get float name, right? And then otherwise return 0 like that. And then if I did have that, then I could just use this and right away return get float of this mixer. And the more complicated logic would be um, the null checking would be handled in this extra method, which kind of frees up my logic here. But like I said, we're not checking whether this parameter actually exists on on that mixer. So I'm kind of unhappy about it. I'm thinking the for each was maybe not so bad, and then we could check if the get float actually succeeded, and if so, then we return. Difficult to say. Okay, let's do the for each. They there are multiple ways to do this, and they're just different, right? They are not necessarily clearly better. One is not clearly better than another. Okay, so if we get the float, then we return it, and if we don't, then we return 0. This is actually not bad. This looks like a reasonable for each loop, right? Because now there is an actual condition in it that is not just true for the very first one. So this is more like a search for through all of them. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm reasonably happy with this. Okay, so what's going on here? Find matching groups. Get audio groups. Find matching groups to string. Oh, audio groups is our own stuff. Okay, I see what's going on. Okay, we've got a bunch of mixers, and they are we connected groups in the mixer form a path from the mixer's master group to the leaves. This path has the format master group child of master group grandchild of group master group. That is not readable. Master group child of master group grandchild of master group? Like who writes those kind of things? So to find the grandchild group in this example, a valid search string would be, for instance, ranchi, which would return exactly one group, while hild or oop would return two different groups. Substring matching. Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know enough about Unity Audio to make sense of this, but there's some substring group matching thing going on, and we have these. We are using like enum entry names as the substring groups, and we hope that none of them actually have a substring overlap, right? Like if I have damage and then damage tick, then damage would find damage tick. That would not be good. So, all right. Hopefully, these are all like unique strings that have no overlap. Okay. Anyway, find matching groups is a function on an audio mixer, and it just collects results, and then we check if we have any results, and then we return them. Okay, that is fair enough, right? But like again, let's just use a for each loop instead of a for loop because it's easier and it's less error prone. Like there's uh, less index errors. Okay, and it doesn't allocate. It does not allocate garbage. It did that in the past, but it doesn't do that anymore. And this could be something that you do more often for an array, like check that it's non-null and also non-empty. So you might want to put that into a utility class, like there's like string is null or empty, and it's really useful for strings. Just make an is null or empty for arrays and use that, because chances are you always want to check those two things at the same time anyway. So, well, I suppose we could just do that. Managers, shared, audio manager. Why not? We'll do it. Where is the audio manager? Script scheme. Okay, so put a utils folder, put array utils. Important. While I'm at it, do not create a utils class. Create lots of utils classes, right? Because um, you don't want to mix like things for array strings for strings. Like your utils class is gonna grow to a complexity that is not good for maintenance. So instead, what you want to do is you want to have a utils folder or multiple even, and that's where you put your utils classes in, and they are all static. Otherwise, it wouldn't be utils classes, right? And then array utils has a function called is null or empty, right? And it takes a system array and then it does turn array is null or array. It does that. And then we use it. If not array utils null empty. Okay. Make this code a little bit cleaner and also give the if condition a readable name so that the reader doesn't have to think about like was this actually correct? Like okay, so yeah. The things that can go wrong with this, it would be, hey, do you spot the error, right? Like you have to check this one, and you have to check this one, and you have to check this one. Like, and I guess some one is also a number that happens often, or like this, right? Like or like that. Like there are so many checks in here that you have to double check whether everything is correct. Whereas if you just use is null or empty, the name says what it does, and you would have a unit test that tests is null or empty once, right? And then for the rest of your development, you can be assured that is null or empty actually does what it's supposed to do. It checks null or empty. Like, easy enough to see that that is correct. Okay. And then again, I'm not sure why this is a mono behavior. If it's not wrong, okay, so here are multiple reasons why it would be a mono behavior or why it should be a scriptable object. These audio mixers, they all live in the scene, right? They are, I hope so. I hope they live in the scene. They are object. They are not mono behavior. What are we referencing? Because if we're not referencing something in the scene, then why are we in the scene? Like why are we not a scriptable object? Okay, let's check this. Audio manager. See who uses this. Game manager. Ah, too many managers. This main audio mixer. Main audio mixer is totally an asset. It's not in the scene. This and if you put the audio manager, which then has a list of mixers, which by the way you're only using the first, like it only has one in there, and we were really like thinking hard about the code, like why would it have multiple ones, and like this is weird, and it turns out it's really only one audio mixer. Okay, okay. So suppose let's suppose because this is a tutorial, right? Let's suppose later in the tutorial they will actually add another audio mixer into the game, and later in the tutorial they want you to adjust the master volume for all the audio mixers at once, and that's why they have prepared this scaffolding already, because they know that later they will want to use it, right? Like that I would not object to, but like if this is the final thing, like if I were to look at uh, if I were to look at the code as is, as a final kind of code for what it does, this is ridiculous. Like this is none of the we don't need the entire class if all we do is reference a single damn audio mixer. You could just literally like the one caller is audio utility. audio utility could just have the reference um, to the audio mixer in question, right? And then set the master volume on that. It's We're not gaining anything by doing it this way. Okay. Okay, so game manager. Let's remove that from the game manager because it doesn't make sense to have it as a mono behavior anyway. There's nothing that does that is in the scene. We'll put this as a scriptable object again. And the tutorial can still do whatever it wants to do later because because you can still reference this. Oh yeah, right. The signature has changed. Audio manager. Okay. The name is totally bad because it's not, again, it's not managing anything, right? It's just like storing it. Why are the two? Did I just create one? I think I just created. I totally just created. Okay, got it. So we do that, and then anyone who wants to have an audio manager can just have it. Speaking of which, who wants to have an audio manager? Well, it's only audio utility. What is audio utility doing? What is the utility that it provides? And this is a static method, that is a static method, that is a static method, that is a static method, this is an enum type, and that is a static field. Like, why is this not a static class in the first place? It would be so silly to instantiate audio utility because there's nothing in it that is not static. So make your static class static. Also, the other thing that's a good hint is if the class is already named utility, that only makes sense for static classes because like what would that look like if you instantiate the same utility like 3 times? Like if you have now 3 instances of audio utility in your hand, like how would they even be different? Um, it's weird. Now, so this is a utility class that does something only statically, right? And what I don't like about it is that it accesses the audio manager as a singleton. It caches it into a mutable static field. Mutable static field. Whenever you see that, you should think global. This is like a global variable, right? Because that's exactly what it is. It lives from the beginning of your code of running your code to the very end, and it can change values uh, and it's tying up everything together. And like global variables, we had like years of software development trying to invent ways around global variables because they make things complicated, right? And now you're putting like static mutable fields in your classes, and you're like doing the opposite of what object-oriented programming is all about, which is like de detail hiding, right? This, and encapsulation um, of internals so that you can have a minimal outside interface that you can maintain while changing things around internally. And game development is change, right? Like the one thing we need to be able to do in games is in game development is easily change things around because we never know whether things are going to work out or not, whether we're going to have to cut everything or whether we have to like change the way things work. Changeability is like the number one concern in game development. So let's find something here because I even wrote a big like blog post um, on this precise topic of like static fields. So let me find it. It should be on GitHub Pages. How do I do that? Oh no, I think I didn't make it into a page. Did I? I'm not sure. But okay, here's the blog post. So github.com/lampen, that's my GitHub, right? There's a game dev workshop that I'm hosting, and there's a post about decoupling. And the main thing about decoupling is getting rid of static variables. And the way we do that in Unity, the easiest way we can do that in Unity is by using scriptable objects, because scriptable objects are assets, which means they live for as long, like they live the entire time, right? They don't come into life when the scene starts and go out of life when the scene ends. They're just assets. They're always there from the beginning to the end. So you can totally always reference them from the beginning to the end. It's not too long of a blog post, but I don't want to walk you through it. It's faster if you just like read it. It's tells you exactly why this is a very bad idea and what happens when you do this kind of thing. So non, nonetheless, this is a utility class, right, which doesn't live anywhere. It's not instantiated. So if Audio Manager now is a scriptable object, which we made it to, we can't use this anymore. Right? How do we actually get our reference to it? And the answer to that is always you just pass it in. You just pass it in, and now it's not your problem anymore. Now it's the problem of whoever is calling this. So who is calling this? Aha, GameFlow Manager and in-game menu manager. So GameFlow Manager is a mono behavior, right? So GameFlow Manager is in the scene and has like serialized fields, and we can just like serialized field private audio manager. We could just put an audio manager on this. A reference to an audio manager, and then set master volume of that audio manager, right? Set master volume of that audio manager. So, and then the utility class really only does what its utility, which is apparently messing with, I don't know, conversion between, I suppose this is a 0 to 1 slider, and then you have to stuff in logarithmic decibels into the audio manager for it to make sense. So it just does some conversion, right? And that's fine. That's totally fine for a utility class to do. That's maybe not something that you want to have on the audio manager itself. So you just pass it in. Nobody's calling this, right? And you can totally get rid of this static field. And now you don't have any global variables anymore, right? And you just hook everything up in the inspector and everyone is happy. And you can follow those references and you can find them in like with a text search. And in code, you don't have to worry about that there's a singleton hiding somewhere which can screw you up, because if um, if you're testing something, um, like if you're running unit tests two after another, who's clearing that singleton in between? Who's making sure that there's not like a remainder of whatever values the previous call did in that singleton? Now it's explicit. So now you know that, I mean, first of all, nobody can store anything anymore because there's no static field, right? And you have to pass it in. So now the caller is acutely aware that in order for this method to function, it needs to have an audio manager somehow, right? So you have to provide that audio manager, and that makes the contract very explicit between the caller and the functionality of the callee, right? Oh, okay. So here's another weapon controller that also then would need. Jesus Christ. Do you know which ones of these are serialized and which ones are not? I mean, these are all public, so they are serialized. These are public, but they are properties, so they are not serialized. Then there are a couple of in here that are like non-public, so not serialized. Then we have a Unity. Are you kidding me? So Unity action is just delegate, right? And you're not declaring this as an event. So event here means that you can only plus equals and minus equals. But this one you can do whatever you want to it. That's a bad idea. Where am I even gonna put my serialized field? Good lord, this is a mess. Uh, put it here. Okay, we'll come to this eventually, right? As we go through the code. Okay, so did we get everything? I haven't assigned it to those prefabs yet, but you get what I'm saying. Oh, interesting. There's a lot going on. Apparently, audio utility is used by. Wow. Okay, that will take a while to fix, and I will spare you sitting here and watching me fix all these, right? Um, a lot of classes are using audio utility, and they are all implicitly using the audio manager, which isn't really doing a lot of heavy lifting. Also, if this enum, like, why is this enum inside the static class, like audio groups, audio utility, audio groups? It reads so weird when you have to spell it all out. Like, this could just be its own thing. It doesn't have to be an audio utility. Besides the fact that there's a better way than using enums, but like that let's not go there for now. Okay. All right. I think I'll leave it at that for today. We have looked at Audio Manager, which now is reasonably straightforward, right? And then we looked at the at Audio Utility as well, um, which now no longer has a singleton storage in there, and instead uses very straightforward static functions. So that's all good. I think this is so this can return null. Yeah, yeah. Do you see that? There's a null reference exception right here. Because find matching groups, if it's not matching anything, then it returns null. And then uh, you ask null.length, and that's not it's not gonna go anywhere, right? So hey, array utils. Better. Didn't find audio group 4. Yeah. This this would have never happened. I mean, okay, if you return an empty array, then it would actually have happened. But if you return null, then you just get a crash, which is bad. Now, I'm not sure if this is a warning or should be an error. Anyway, enough for today. This class reasonably okay now. I would still extract that. I haven't looked at the code here yet, right? This class reasonably okay now as a scriptable object. And like I said, now we have to fix like all of these to have a reference to the audio manager, which just means that we're going to go through the prefabs and the scene and like probably they are all prefabs, yeah. So just go through the prefabs and assign the audio manager in the various places for the various prefabs and change the code a little bit around, right? Straightforward, not very interesting work. And yeah, that's where I leave you for today, and see you in another episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.